I've had this camera for a couple of months now. When I got it, I almost sent it back. In fact, I was sure that I was going to send it back. But then I kept it and I've been using it and I sort of changed my mind and now I'm going to keep it. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why. So for those of you who are new here, my name is Zach. I'm a photographer and videographer from Santa Barbara, California. And my work is primarily focused in three camps: weddings and couples, portraiture, and performing arts. For a while now, I've been using the EOS R6 as my primary camera body. Back in July, I took my business full time, and I have a couple of big contracts with performing arts organizations where I'll be making promotional images and shooting images for stages. And I found in the past that the R6 is a little bit lacking when it comes to this type of work because of the resolution limitations. It's the only instances in which I've desired more resolution from the R6. And that's mainly because the work that I'm producing for these companies is often printed large scale on posters that go on the side of the theaters, or I'm shooting stages from the very back of the house far away, and I just need that resolution to be able to crop into my image. That's what got me interested in the R5. It was purely for the extra resolution that this camera offers, and that to me was the deciding factor in picking up the R5. So I want to get a couple of things out of the way before we begin. The first is that I am a biased Canon camera user. I just love the Canon ecosystem. I've used it since I started photography. It's the system that I have chosen to use over any other. So just know that I'm sort of bought into Canon, and that's just a thing. There's no reason I'm not being paid by Canon or anything like that. It's just a preference for the gear, the way it works, the image quality, the lenses. I just like the ecosystem. Also, as I've said before many times on this channel, I'm just some random person who's making videos on the internet. Yes, I'm a professional photographer. It's what I do full time. It's my business. So I do have experience and I use this gear professionally, but I'm only offering you my experience and my opinion. So if you're watching this video trying to decide where to invest your cash, watch some other videos, do some research online before actually making the plunge. Okay, so this is Editor Zach coming to you live. Not really, but I forgot to say a couple of important things when I filmed this video, so I just wanted to tell you now. The first is the reason that I wanted to send this camera back when I got it. It was just because I felt like when I got it, it didn't blow my mind in the way that I was expecting it to. I thought, wow, this camera's great, but it's like not that much better than my R6. So is it redundant? Like, do I need it? The other thing that I wanted to say is about the file sizes with this camera. They're massive. And so it's not a camera that I would use for all circumstances. For wedding day, for example, it's not the camera of choice for me just because of the file management is just crazy. Really big file sizes. So if I were to use it for wedding day, I would be selective about what I shoot with it. Maybe bridal portraits, maybe couples portraits, maybe details, but probably not reception, probably not dancing, not ceremony even, just because of that massive amount of file management that comes with these really high resolution files. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, back to the video. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is really the reason that I decided to go with the R5 to begin with, and that is the sensor, the resolution, the image quality. For me, it was this sensor in this camera that was the only thing that I cared about when picking it up. The sensor in this camera is 45 megapixels as opposed to the R6's 20 megapixel sensor. What does that actually mean? It just means that there's more resolution. So when you're looking at the image, you just see more detail, you can crop in more, you can print it larger. There's just more to work with. The files that come out of this camera are absolutely beautiful. They edit really, really well. The colors are gorgeous. Just like the R6, I'm completely in love with the image quality from the R5. It's stunning. So the other thing that hasn't changed here from the R6 is the autofocus. The R5 has insane autofocus capabilities, especially when using RF lenses. And I feel like I've actually hacked the autofocus mechanism in these cameras. People have challenged me on this and I've tested out different ways of shooting, but I really think that my way is the best. So the default way that I shoot when it comes to autofocus is single point, one shot. That's where I start. That's the base of my camera when I pick it up. It's in single point, one shot. With this, I know exactly where my focus point is. I can move it around with a joystick, can put it wherever I want to. It's precise. I know when I lock on to something that is going to be in focus. Focus is achieved really quickly and really accurately. But these cameras also have incredible face tracking, eye tracking, and they have incredible servo mode, which is continuous focus. A lot of photographers rely on face tracking servo because it's great. It works really well. The camera is brilliant. But the thing is, if you just shoot in face tracking servo, sure, the autofocus is great, but your camera can't tell what you're thinking. And so sometimes it will focus really well on something, but that something is not necessarily the something that you want it to be focusing on. So for me, that's why I start with single point, one shot. So I have absolute control over my camera. But I've mapped the AF on button so that when I press that button and hold it down, the camera instantly shifts to face tracking servo. So I can move from having full control over my camera, putting the focus point where I want it to be, then hold down the AF on button and we switch directly into face tracking servo. And the camera knows from where the focus point is that that's where it should be focusing. That's where it should pick up the subject. If you haven't tried this, you should really try it because I think it works really well. This is honestly one of my favorite things about these cameras, and it has completely changed the way that I shoot. My favorite feature by far, aside from the image quality of these cameras, is the autofocus modes and the ability to quickly shift between the two and almost use them in tandem with each other. IBIS in this camera is incredible. I shoot most of the wedding films that I shoot handheld pretty much all the time. Combined with RF lenses that have IS, the footage is extremely stable. It makes it possible to get shots that were not possible to achieve before. For example, shooting handheld with my 70-200 at 200 millimeters, which was just something that wasn't possible previously. This gear has made that possible. And honestly, I love shooting handheld with my 70-200. It's of course not completely steady at 200 millimeters, but it's more than usable. Also, for still photography, if you're shooting indoors in low light, if you're shooting a static subject, you can drop that shutter speed super low and still get tack sharp images without compromising any image quality. It's amazing. The stabilization in these cameras has really transformed how you can shoot. I just had to switch from my first R6 to my other R6 because the R6 started overheating, which leads me into our section about video. The biggest problem with the R5 and the R6 is the overheating for me across the board. When shooting video in 4K, the cameras overheat. Now, the R5 offers one benefit, and that is if you shoot in 4K 24 at the normal quality 4K mode, it won't overheat. You still have the 30-minute record limit, which is really annoying in my opinion, but the camera won't overheat, at least in that mode. Now, in any of the top tier codecs above that, so the other 4K modes, different frame rates, or the 4K fine modes, or the 8K mode, the camera will overheat, which is just so disappointing. Should a $5,000 camera overheat when you're using it to make work? No, but it does. Do I choose to use this camera system because I love it so much and I'm willing to work with that and accept that? Yes. Has it been an issue for me so much that I haven't been able to shoot weddings with it? No. Is it really annoying and stressful? Yes. But I also have 3 camera bodies. Like, I'm lucky to have this many cameras that I can sort of swap out as needed, but not everybody has that luxury, and honestly, it shouldn't be a thing. So aside from the complaints about overheating, the R5, like the R6, is brilliant when recording video. In all honesty, I have not experimented with any of the really extreme codecs like the 8K RAW. It's nice that's a tool within this camera, but for what I do and how I use the camera, it's just not what I bought it for. The build quality of the R5 is really great, just like the R6. It's slightly more professional. You get that screen on top rather than the mode dial. You also get a larger LCD screen. You have an improved LCD and viewfinder. So the displays are better. The R5 is also a little bit heavier and the grip is deeper. It just feels a little bit more rugged. And I like that, I have to say. Overall, it's a great camera. It's fairly compact for a camera that does this much. You can also get the grip that makes it a little bit larger, which I actually like quite a bit. With the RF lenses, which are pretty massive, the camera is not a compact system at all. But if you pare it down to just the body and something like the RF35, it's manageable to take it with you pretty much everywhere, which is nice. So my final thoughts on this camera, who is it for? This is probably the perfect tool for many photographers, especially if you're making professional work, if you're being paid for your images, you will not regret purchasing this camera. It really is incredible. It offers so many features and the image quality is probably the best I've ever seen from a camera. It's just phenomenal. If you're just starting your business and you're thinking about where to invest, I think it might make more sense to go with the R6 and a good lens rather than going for the R5 right away. It might feel like overkill to go right for the R5. Even for me, there are a lot of features that I don't use, may never use. The biggest feature for me, the only one for me that's most important, is that resolution of the sensor. That for me is what made it a thing. Not everybody needs that. So I'd really consider what you're shooting. So to sum up, I love the R5. I think it's great. Definitely happy to have it. And I'm going to be keeping it because it's been really valuable for me in the work that I've been doing recently. And I'm looking forward to using it on bigger projects that are coming up in the future. Let me know what you think. If you've used the R5 and the R6, which do you prefer? If you just shoot with the R5, why did you choose it? What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? If you have any questions about what we've talked about in this video, leave me a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel. I'd love to see you at the next video. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Love is free.